Audi's best-selling vehicle, the Q5, has just been redesigned for 2025. And after driving its siblings, the SQ6 and the Q6 e-tron models, which are fully electric, how does this turbocharged four-cylinder stack up? And I've been using the Q5 this week to take my kids to school, so I know what it behaves like in stressful situations and calm situations. Is this a good luxury vehicle? This one is priced at over $63,000 in the prestige grade. So after we drive and review this today, we're gonna head back into the office, look for deals in my area on the Audi Q5, but we'll also put it on the spreadsheet and give it a grade. How does it stack up with all the other cars I've driven here in 2025? Let's find out. We have a turbocharged four-cylinder. It's longitudinally mounted. It is standard all-wheel drive. We have 268 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque, made it exclusively to a 7-speed automatic dual-clutch transmission. 25 miles per gallon is what I'm seeing when I drive it conservatively, but how this car likes to be driven, I can see about 23 miles per gallon. And last year's Q5 40, they took this and detuned it, but this year, every single trim level, every single Q5 with this powertrain has the 268 horsepower. Now the SQ5 still exists with the turbocharged 3-liter V6 with around 365 horsepower. I wish I had that for review this week. Maybe I can get it from Audi here in the near future. Also, we don't have any of the plug-in hybrid Q5s available yet with this new redesign, and that might be the sweet spot in the lineup in terms of performance and efficiency. Underneath the hood though, we do have a nice pad here to reduce noise vibration. We have a nice heat shield in the back to prevent the engine noise and heat from coming into the cabin. Pretty nice engine compartment. We do have shocks on each side, double latch for better rigidity. This is what I would expect from an Audi. The Q6 models that I reviewed also had a new front end, new platform. This is on a new platform as well, of course, on a more gasoline focused end of things. It does look super similar to the Q6 that I drove a couple weeks ago. Big Audi logo. A large portion of the grille is blocked off. The Q6 has no air passing through this area, all right? It's just completely one solid piece. We have big sensors down below. Also honeycomb down at the bottom for more air to pass through to cool the radiators. These daytime running lights are really, really sharp, really razor thin. They have some cool dances to them when you turn on the blinkers. Nighttime lights work well here. I like the vertical air passes here. Overall, it's a very handsome looking front end to the Q5. Let me know if you like it better than last year's model. We got 20s here on these 5-spoke wheels, big brake rotors. The braking performance of the car, don't want to skip to my driving impressions too fast, but the brakes are incredible. You can get smaller wheels in the lineup. These are the optional ones, of course, on this prestige grade. The Q5 from the side appears to be maybe a little bit longer than the previous generation. I will put on the screen length and wheelbase compared to last year's model. The window surrounds do match the roof rails here. I do have smart key access on the door handles. We have this trim piece at the bottom, which reminds me of the e-tron models as well. It's very subtle. All right, on the back of the vehicle, we kind of have this light bar shelf underneath the logo. It'd been nice if this was tucked up underneath to make it a little bit more sleek. We got the Quattro badge. Again, all these Q5s are standard all-wheel drive. We have the Q5 badge, which is really hard to see back here because it's blacked out in this sort of trim. Parking sensors here. What's interesting, this is matte black. Even on the side, we had that glossy black garnish. I don't know why this is matte black. It should be glossy black, in my opinion. And we have some nice dual exhaust down below. Let's get into the cargo area. And this is going to be one of the ways the Q5 succeeds. Maybe not with spare tire because we don't have one. We have underfloor cargo, huge cargo space here. I can fold the seats down 40, 20, 40. This does have air ride suspension, and I can raise and lower the back end beam back here. I do have lights on the lift gate and one light on each side here. It's well illuminated and just so much space, and I think people are really going to appreciate the functionality of the seats too. We have one little 12-volt back here, but let's get in the back seat. Getting into the back seat of the Q5, it's been okay for my kids this week, but it's not ideal. I mean, their backpacks are about the size of them, so it's almost like fitting 6 kids in the back here. We do have sunshades in this prestige grade. Bang & Olufsen, I believe it's 16 speakers. I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. Materials, they're okay. Is this really blocky and chunky in the back? I can't slide this seat around, which I'm not really expecting. Do I have different levels of recline? Yeah, I have 3 different levels of recline, which is nice. I have 2 USBs back here, USB-Cs, heated outboard seats. I think it's, it's a bit tight for its class, to be honest, especially with this drivetrain hump here that comes up to about mid-shin for me. And that has been taking space away from the kids as well this week. Now I do have a panel roof. Go and open that with a single touch capacitive button up top. We also have cup holder armrest back here as well. I don't know if I mentioned vents. Of course I have vents back here, and I can control the climate back here, but only temperature. I can't control fan speed. Of course the kids love the ambient lighting that this car has in the back seat too. Now I will say one of the most luxurious things about this Q5, it's not the materials, it's how the doors slam. Even the back doors are incredible when you slam them. It feels and sounds like a Volt. So well done, Audi, there. As I pick up one of my husky hairs that followed me in. And of course it was sitting on the glossy black plastic that surrounds the cup holder area, the shifter area. And that's a good segue. Before I get into all the tech in here, let's go over materials. Glossy black here. This area, this center console, it's not very comfy because it's all hard touch. They're not going to fool me by putting stitching through plastic. This is hard touch, so when my knee touches this area, it's uncomfortable when I'm driving, okay? The armrest area, too much plastic. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but I have a touch capacitive panel here for mirror control, memory seats. That doesn't bother me that much because at least I have real switches for my windows. Steering wheel. It feels pretty high quality. I like all the places I can rest my hands. Paddle shifters, pretty plastic here. This is a bit frustrating is the lack of buttons here and the sensitive touch capacitive panels on the steering wheel. In fact, when I've been driving this week, my palm will accidentally touch the touch capacitive panel and start fiddling with the car. I don't like that at all. This screen is a bit weird too. So I think this is about 11, this is about a 14 inch, and this is about 11 inch screen too, somewhere around there. I can't really change the view of this screen. All right, I constantly have popping up on this screen the cars around me, it's distracting, and I have to turn off the optional head-up display here because I can't find a way. And by the way, I can get to the head-up display fairly quickly here. Through the sliding menu stuff, and I can change the brightness, I can turn it on, but I can't turn off the little icon of the car, which is always on there with the cars around you while you're driving through traffic. I can't just put up miles per hour. You might be able to think that you could just do it through the setting here, the display contents. I can't find a way to turn off. This is what it always looks like here. And then if there's traffic around you, or if you're driving, the dotted lines are always moving on that head-up display. It is super distracting, not safe. Head-up displays are supposed to help it make you be safer, but it's just nothing but a distraction. So I turn off that really expensive option here as soon as I could, because I couldn't find a way to customize it the way I like. Now, maybe there is a way to just put up speed and that's it. I couldn't find a way, all right? They make it difficult. And this is all baked through their new Google Automotive system, which overall, it's okay. I don't have any main issues with it. I do have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto if I choose to have it. For example, there's my Android Auto, Apple CarPlay options here. This screen is okay. The thing is, I don't really have an issue with too much of the software in here. The safety is a bit annoying. So there's a button here which will take me to this screen. So if I'm in just base software here, I press this button next to the 360 camera. It has my favorites. Now, I don't want distraction warning on, and I don't want fatigue warning on. However, when I do that, the car on this screen constantly cycles the things that are not on, and it's distracting, which is not a safe. It's the complete opposite of making this car safe. All right, so it's just, I have to keep one of these on so it's not completely flashing. And for me, that's maybe the fatigue warning. I cycle back and forth. I just constantly have, and I have this collision thing going on here. Every time when I start this car in the morning, take my kids to school, there's moisture all over the cameras, the sensors, and the car beeps and freaks out for the first mile or so. And the kids are like, oh, who hasn't buckled their seatbelt? No, they're all buckled. It's just all the other warnings that the car has when the safety features are not being functional to the car's liking. It's just bing bonging everywhere down the road. This bezel here, quite distasteful. In my opinion, it looks like a Buick. And that's maybe a compliment to Buick, but that's not a compliment to this Audi. This looks nice upon first inspection, but this is just faux plastic here. All right, I do have a soft touch dash up on the top at least, while I'm surrounded by plastic everywhere else. I have thigh extension here. These seats are comfortable. They're a bit basic. I don't have a massaging seat function. My climate control, meaning my heated and ventilated seats, are through the touchscreen. At least they're always here. They don't disappear. The climate control, the AC works really well in here, but the vent placement's really poor, just like the Q6, for example. It's really, really low. So in the heat of the day, if the car's been sitting out in the sun, you're just not going to be able to channel the air to your face as you want it to be. However, if the cabin's completely cooled off, you're not worried about it. All right, so it just depends if it's been sitting in the sun. You're just not going to get that face cooling that you need here due to the placement and how skinny. Look how skinny these vents are. You just can't push a lot of air through them. So what I found out is you have to turn off the passenger vents to get the right amount of airflow to actually hit you in the face. It's a bit frustrating, but it does blow really cold if you can get it pointing in the right directions. All right. Auto start stop. This 4-cylinder does turn off and on, and I don't like that. I prefer to turn this feature off because the 4-cylinder, while smooth in operations, we'll find out when we drive, it is not smooth when it turns off and turn on. This is not an Audi mild hybrid. This is a standard internal combustion setup. So it's really not designed for the engine turning on and off often. So I just turn it off and forget about it. Okay, next to that button is also drive select. I personally have to drive in dynamic mode all the time, but I'll talk about that once we start driving. And the air ride suspension started moving when I pressed that button. Okay, it just raised back up to the neutral level. Volume knob is pretty far away from me. I don't know why, these two things can't be flip-flopped. You press start engine once when you're in the car, and then you're always reaching across here to the volume knob. So it's just, I'm glad they have a volume knob, but it's just in a far away location. Messing with the volume on the steering wheel is frustrating. Messing with anything on the steering wheel is pretty frustrating, to be honest. This left pages only works with the left side of the screen. The right pages works with the right side of the screen. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's still pretty frustrating, to be honest. So I'm not gonna play with it anymore today. I'm just going to leave it where I like to have it, which is fuel economy, and there we go. It's still struggling on getting it where I want. The Audi Q5 has the best wireless charger I've ever tested in a car. All right, maybe the Q6 did as well, I just don't remember, but it is like actively cooled, and it just charges really, really fast with my Pixel phone, and it doesn't overheat even though I have a case on it. 2 USB-Cs down there, cup holders are in a good spot. You're just reminded with the cheap materials around it. There's a ton of ambient lighting in here, and I think I can get to it. Yeah, so the slidey menu, and then you go to interior lighting, sort of, and then you press back, and then it gets to the ambient lighting. It's a bit of a memory, but there's lots of different settings you can do. My kids loved it. My kids have been loving the ambient lighting this week. Eve, my youngest, has been enjoying this car more than me because she loves the ambient lighting. This other screen over here, just for the passenger, I just turn it off. We don't need it in our car. It's a part of this prestige package, and Audi, take note, more screens does not equal more luxury. More ambient lighting does not equal more luxury. Better quality materials and a better interface for climate control, that's what means luxury to me. But that's just the interior experience. The luxury experience also has to be for sure in the driving dynamics and the behavior of the cars. But let's get on the road to see how this drives as a luxury vehicle. Now, Audi does have a pretty good 360 camera here, and I can pull it up with just the press of this button. So no complaints there with the camera system. The parking sensors around the vehicle Audi did a great job with it. The Bang & Olufsen sound system in here is good. You have to make sure you turn off the 3D sound, the surround sound, which are two different features, which is really strange. Once you turn off of all that weird audio enhancement, it sounds pretty good. It's a little front heavy when you do that compared to the 3D audio or the surround, but it sounds much more natural, much more rich, and less distracting. It's a cleaner sound. So the Bang & Olufsen is good. Just make sure you turn off all that extra crap that they try to layer on top. All right, I don't know how much this air ride suspension helps in this prestige grade, but it does provide a very smooth ride quality. And I can't imagine if I had 19-inch wheels on here, the ride quality would even get better. But for its class, the ride quality is right at the top, I would say. Very impressive. Visibility in the Q5. It's never been an issue at all with all the miles I've put on it. I've almost put 200 miles on it this week. No issue at all with the visibility in this car. All right, so well done with the visibility, well done with the ride quality, well done with the quiet. This is one of the quietest cars I've been in a while. I do have acoustic glass up here. You do not hear the engines. We'll lay into the throttle here in a little bit. The engine is, they've done a great job removing too much four-cylinder sounds from the cabin. The brakes, so get into the brakes. These brakes are super touchy. So touchy that I like it. And we're gonna do a, there's a little bit of water here, but we're going to go ahead and do a 0 to 60. We're gonna go ahead and put it in dynamic mode. Okay, we're gonna torque brake. Revs to like maybe 1800 RPM. Does not launch hard. Shifts are great, really smooth. 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds. I don't know why, you know, that's decent time. It's faster than like an NX 350, which is a chief rival to this. You know, all-wheel drive here, it doesn't seem to want to launch hard, and I'm surprised. Maybe it would launch better without a torque brake, but that's, you know, it's a 6.8 second 0 to 60 and a 7.22 second 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. That feels about right. That was the first time I did a 0 to 60 this week. The performance here is acceptable. It's not, you know, gonna wow anyone. What will wow people is the smoothness of this four-cylinder, but the car starts off in individual mode. Okay, and you can customize individual mode a little bit with the steering. You can have the stiffer steering. You can choose how soft or hard the suspension is. You can choose different driver assistance, virtual cockpit, but you can't choose how the engine performs. So you have to go into sport mode if you want this engine to have any sort of hustle to it. As I get into the brakes, again, the brakes here are just so good. I'm gonna throw it in the turn. And the handling. Wow, Audi, you've nailed the handling. I love how this car feels in the turns. It feels lighter than what it is. So from a braking perspective, a ride quality perspective, a cornering perspective, it nails it out of the park. The engine and the transmission are the dud here, surprisingly. I thought I was going to get a little bit more hustle. But as I'm finding with nearly every single car this year, or as of recently anyways, if you're just in standard mode, I'm halfway down on the pedal, and then it finally decides it wants to downshift with this 7-speed, but it doesn't go anywhere quick. All right, it really likes to get to the top gear as soon as possible. And what's surprising is that as it does that, around 1500 to 1800 RPM in your commute, when it likes to upshift quickly, you're lugging the engine, and I get some weird vibrations through the dash and the cabin around 1800 RPM especially. That is not luxury quality. How do I fix that? Well, how do I fix the really conservative programming of the transmission and that vibration? Is I just put it into dynamic mode instantly. Dynamic mode, for my type of driving that I do in town, it doesn't go past 5th gear. So my gear, the engine is always in a happier RPM. The gears aren't too far away for the dual clutch to just grab and go, which it just did there. I have to drive this car in dynamic mode. Unfortunately, I have to select it. I can't have this sort of programming in my individual mode, which doesn't make much for an individual mode if I can't individualize it the way I want, if you know what I mean. In dynamic mode, I drove about half my miles this week in individual mode, where the car defaults at every time you start. And then I drove half the miles. Ooh, that's a nice Ferrari. I drove half my miles in dynamic mode, and it's just a night and day performance and livability enjoyment. It's really solid. I wouldn't say it's great in dynamic mode. It just makes it like easy to live with. When I can actually get into the 268 horsepower. It never feels far away. If I put it back into individual mode, all right, I'm just gonna let it get into 7th gear, which it wants to do as fast as possible. Half pedal, not much. Full pedal, there it goes. And even then, it just feels pretty muted compared to the dynamic mode. So do yourself a favor, put it into dynamic mode. Every time you start the car will feel, and the engine will feel way more happy to make you happy. You have a much better relationship with the car in dynamic mode. And in individual mode, you're constantly wrestling with the transmission logic and the engine to do what you want it to do. All right, so we're just going to keep in dynamic mode because I cannot stand how this car behaves in individual mode. Now, there's also a comfort and off-road. I mean, it's plenty comfortable, even dynamic. So you might be saying, Kirk, dynamic, you know, you're not going to have the softness of the suspension that you would in comfort or individual, but it's not that stiff in here, even in dynamic mode. All right, and it handles like a razor blade. And I'm just, you know, this is the way to drive the car. Let's get around this Elantra here. Oh, it's just instant in dynamic mode. It just wants to please you. And that's what I expect out of a luxury car. And from an Audi, we got a green light here. That's the only turns we have. Let's not lose the camera. I might. Yes, there it is. That's what it's about. You know, the 0 to 60 is not fast, but once you're in dynamic mode and you're already off the line, it feels much quicker than a 6.8 second 0 to 60. I will say that. So, you know, if you need performance, obviously go for the SQ5. The SQ5 with the turbo V6, it's going to solve a lot of the issues that I have with this powertrain. And I have an issue with the pricing. $63K, how this is loaded, and more screens, whatever. It doesn't do anything for me. In fact, it detracts from the experience. So let's head into the office. Let's look for deals of the Q5 in my area. We'll try to look for this body style because 2025s have both body styles, the old and the new. It's pretty confusing from Audi. So we'll try to narrow it down to the new generation Q5 2025 model. And then we'll look at competitors. I mean, there's a lot of competitors out there that do some things better than this car. Okay, this car is hard to beat with its braking and handling and its ride quality, but like I can get those sort of things from lesser cars that are way less expensive. And I'm expecting a better experience on the inside from a material and comfort point of view and a less frustrating user interface to work with. So let's get in the office. Let's look at some GV70s, some Lexus NXs, for example, GLCs. I drove a GLC plug-in hybrid. That was a lot more expensive than this car, but I liked that car better than this car overall, I would say, just because the powertrain was just more satisfying and felt more at home in a car of that price point. All right, let's get into the office. Let's look for the new Q5 in my area. The easiest way for me to tell is the daytime running lights when I'm looking at, you know, 20. Obviously, look at these big blocky ones. You know, the previous Q5 had a little bit more attitude in the design. They smoothed everything out here. We had more pronounced wheel arches, you know, on the previous model.
Now, this here is the Q555, which is the plug-in hybrid. Well, they're going to have a new generation of the plug-in hybrid. It's just not out yet. I wish I drove that or the SQ5 instead. You know, how I tested the Q5, it was about the same price as an SQ5. Here's an SQ5. Man, I think it looks worse than the standard Q5 with these ridiculous gray bezels, silver bezels around. That's $72K. Oh, I just don't think this car is worth anything over 55K. Let's go back to the standard Q5. I mean, anything over 60K is just too much money. What's the cheapest we can find this car for? That is the new 2025, not the old 2025. Here's one at around, well, it's stickers at 57. There's a $3,000 off of MSRP here. I don't think there's so many other cars I'd rather pick in this, very competitive luxury segment. GV70, I would pick. Both the GV70 and the Q5 have a pretty small back seat. They both have really good cargo. I think the G70 looks better. I like the more rear-wheel drive focused GV70. The engine, and both engines, whether it's a turbo 4 or the twin turbo V6, are more fun to drive and more engaging. So I would absolutely pick this vehicle. Now, it does get pretty expensive, but I've driven the 4-cylinders, and the 4-cylinders are still very fast, much faster feeling than the Q5 I drove today. I want to say 0 to 60 on those is around 6 seconds. And then 0 to 60 on the twin turbo V6 is around 5 seconds, if memory serves me correct. So much more fun car, better materials. The interior is so much more pleasant, easier to work with. GV70 is hard to beat. XC60, haven't driven it this year, but I've driven in years past. With the plug-in hybrid as well, you can get the plug-in hybrid for less money than I reviewed the Q5 today. Like, I would not hesitate. 455 horsepower, about 35, 40 miles of electric range on this thing. It is incredible. It's the XC90's baby brother. I love the XC90. I love the XC60. I'd pick this over the Audi Q5. I'd pick even the B5 over the Audi as well. Just looks so much better and has better materials. The Lexus NX, the NX, it doesn't come close to the Audi in terms of performance or NVH. Well, I should say ride quality. The ride quality in the NX is good. It's just not quite as good as the Audi. The Audi brakes better. The Audi handles better. The NX, not that great looking of a car in my opinion. The Audi and this kind of tie for looks. That's just, again, very subjective. But I'm looking at the hybrid here. I can get about 40 miles per gallon on the NX hybrid, and it's a little bit more lively. Unless, again, I'm driving in dynamic mode. It's a little more lively base standard driving mode to base standard driving mode. So the NX comes in a lot cheaper with the hybrid, better fuel economy, very smooth as well. So this is an equal, if not better car than the Audi I drove today. This is definitely a better car. This is the plug-in hybrid GLC that I drove earlier this year. I think it's ugly, but they nailed the powertrain in here so well that it's A category. 70, I think I saw 70 miles of electric range. I didn't write it down, unfortunately. I thought I would put it in the notes. It was somewhere between 60 and 70 miles of electric range. That's just bonkers in a plug-in hybrid. The performance was great. It was fast, it was smooth, it was quiet. The sound system was better than the Audis. Equal ride quality, maybe not quite good as braking or handling as the Audi, but I had a better experience in the GLC plug-in hybrid than I did the Audi. Acura RDX. I think I like the Audi better than this, but the materials on the inside of the RDX aren't that great. You still have a touchpad in here. So it's just like, it's a tough sell. The RDX in today's market, it feels really old. The Audi definitely feels newer, but without physical climate control, with the poor materials in the inside, it really holds it back. So I've been struggling on where I'm going to place the Q5 this week. I think it's a good car, but not for $63K. And there are other cars like the XC70, like the Mercedes-Benz plug-in hybrid, like the Genesis GV70 that are easily, without a shadow of a doubt, better vehicles than the Q5. in my humble opinion. So if those three vehicles are all A, if not S class, which I haven't reviewed this year, nor the XC60, I haven't reviewed it this year. If the Genesis is probably S class, the Volvo is probably S class, then where does the Audi fall? And if the Acura I have is B class, does that mean that the Audi's going to be there as well? Probably. I don't think it's a fire sale only. All right. I think I just wouldn't pay anywhere close to 60 or plus $60,000 for it. Do I like it better than the Q6 e-tron? And the answer is I don't think so. I'm surprised. You know, I think I put the Q6 e-tron right here, and I just had a better driving experience in the Q6 e-tron than I did in the Q5. Now the Q6 was more expensive, obviously. So I think I'm going to put the Q5 right below here. I thought at times this week I would put it at, fire sale only, but once I started driving it exclusively in dynamic mode, it fixed my biggest issue with the driving with the car, right? It became a car that would respond to my inputs instead of one that fought my inputs, at least from the powertrain perspective. So it is a B category. I think it is slightly better than an RDX, but if Audi wants to get close to a GV70, they got to work on their interior materials and interior interface. And they want to get close to an XC60 as well. Well, yes, and prove what I just talked about, but also where's the plug-in hybrid to compete with something like this? All right, Genesis has a standard hybrid coming, 2.5-liter turbo hybrid, which should have somewhere around, if I had to take a guess, maybe like 350 horsepower, which is going to be fun to drive, and I'll have probably about 30 miles per gallon. So that's coming down the hatch to fight in this very competitive segment. You know, the NX plug-in hybrid's really good, but they're almost impossible to find. That's why I don't talk about them much. It's very good. Is it 65K good? No, because I can get it in a RAV4, and I would much rather have Volvo's plug-in hybrid than Toyota's. It's more fun to drive. It has equal driving range to it. You know, I will say that Toyota's fully electric performance is better than Volvo's, but when the engine is combined, the Volvo will completely dust an NX plug-in hybrid, and that engine is always waiting to be called upon in order to give you that full performance in this vehicle. So hopefully you get a chance to drive the plug-in hybrid Q5 as well as the SQ5. I think, you know, but that of course will only increase the pricing, which I think it struggles with the pricing it's asking right now. So it's okay if you get a good lease deal on it. Q5, I think most people are going to be happy with. It's a good luxury car. It's not great, and it's not take my money, nowhere close. Okay, it's almost borderline B to C with how much it costs. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the comments. Was I too harsh on the Audi Q5 redesign? I don't think so. Some people might say I wasn't harsh enough on it. All right, but it did something so well, like the handling, the braking, and the ride quality, that and it was just so quiet that it is a good luxury car. But it needs to have that interior experience to match the driving characteristics of a luxury car. And until it can do that, it's just going to be it's an okay car. You know, if you get a great lease deal, why not? But it doesn't move the needle at all for me whatsoever. Maybe the SQ5 or the plug-in hybrid would do that, but I got to shut it down. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more reviews here on the channel. Let me know if you want me to drive any other Audis. I think I'm driving the redesigned A3 in the near future. I've already driven the S3 sedan. That thing was awesome. So I'm excited to drive the A3 as well. Have a great day, guys. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.